Hey everybody, welcome back to the Expert Secrets Masterclass. This is module number 3. I'm so excited to have you guys here today. And today, we're going to dive into some really, really cool things. And I kind of want to give you an agenda of what's going to be happening. So this first session I'm going to be talking about today is called The Big Domino. And if you've read the Expert Secrets book, you know a little bit about this, but we're going to start diving deeper based on the questions and the feedback and the things that a lot of you guys were kind of asking about how this all works. So I'm going to go into that today. This session will probably be a little longer because there's like 5 or 6 really cool concepts I need to go deep into. And I want to make sure you guys have all the foundation, the understanding, and so there's going to be kind of a lot that goes into it, but it'll be cool. And then when that's done, we're going to be taking, this time we're going to take actually a 20-minute break because we have to get things set up. And when we come back, I'm actually going to be doing a webinar live in front of you guys based on the stuff we're talking about. Okay, so when I'm building a presentation, a sales presentation, I'm looking at all these things I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. So this is all the foundation. So for the next hour and a half or so, I'm going to show you guys the foundation of all the pieces that are essential for you to know and to understand. If you understand these pieces, it makes this whole thing so much fun and so easy. It makes it so you're not feeling like a slick salesman. It makes it so you can actually get people to buy, like all the cool things that you want. Come from understanding the foundation of what we're talking about today. And so I'm going to show you guys the whole foundation, and it'll be kind of like, it'll be thoughts. And so you'll see it and you'll be like, okay, cool, I understand how that works. Then the next question is like, well, I need to see this in practical application. So then after the break, we'll come back and I'm actually going to do a webinar. This is a new webinar I've never done before. So the first time I've ever done it, I'm excited for it. I was mapping it all out yesterday and I think it's going to be really, really fun. I'm going to do it. It's for a real product, it's a real thing. So if you're interested, and you should be, then you should definitely sign up at the end of it. But I'm going to be doing it so you guys can see the whole process. And as you are watching that, I want you to pay attention. All the foundational stuff that you're learning today, like watch and see what I'm doing. Okay? I did a podcast a little while ago called "Watch the Magician's Hands," right? And so part of it is like the magicians are trying to do tricks, and they're trying to like divert your attention places so their hand can like do stuff, right? And so in our business, like what we're doing seems like magic, right? But it's very plain. I don't hide anything ever. Like I don't know anybody who's more transparent than me, right? I wrote a whole book teaching this process. It's funny, like at Funnel Hacking Live, I got on stage and I did a perfect webinar. And I see like everybody out there who's been studying it, like, here comes secret number 1, here comes number 2, and here's the whole, and they're seeing it, here comes the stack, and they understand it, yet they still buy because it still works, right? And so I'm always showing everything. So the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to, again, right now you're going to understand all the foundational pieces. Then you will see me do it. And then tomorrow morning when we come back, same time, same place, then we're going to walk through the entire presentation bit by bit. Okay, this is why this is my big domino for this statement. This is the internal fear belief I was trying to break here. This is the external belief I was trying to break here. This is, and I'll walk you through all the different pieces. I'll talk about the Epiphany Bridge stories, what we used, why we used it, the kind of like bridges, like all the stuff you're going to talk about right now. You guys, I'll walk you through it tomorrow. But I want you guys paying attention during that session because I want you guys taking notes and seeing how many things you can pick out, okay? So that's kind of the game plan. So right now, I'm giving you, here's the foundation, here's all the pieces you need to understand and master. Then I'm going to do it, and then tomorrow I'm going to show you what I did, okay? Does that make sense? So isn't that the way you do learning? Like talk about it, do it, and then talk about it again. So when I'm doing that session tonight, make sure you're watching, get a pad of paper, pen, notes, and listen to what I'm saying and why I'm saying it and see what things you can sync up, and it'll make the process a lot more fun. Does that sound cool? Oh, I'm excited. Only time I've done something similar to this, 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, we had an Inner Circle event, and I had about 100 people here in Boise, and it's because I'd been talking about webinars and the right way to do them, and all this stuff that we're talking about today with this group, and people were doing it, and they were doing it, but they weren't having the success I wanted, so I was like, okay, everyone, fly to Boise. Like, drop what you're doing, fly to Boise. We got everyone in a room. I said, okay, you guys are gonna watch me actually do a webinar. So like, it was awesome. I had on the stage, I had the laptop, and I opened it up. We promoted this webinar. I had, I don't know, 500 or 600 people who were on the webinar, and I did it live. And they had a chance to see me, right? Because sometimes we think that the webinar is just the words, and so we're focusing on the words, but like, there's so much about like how you speak and the interaction and all those kind of things that are tied to it. So I actually did the webinar live with 100 people watching. It was kind of nerve-wracking to say the least. I'm doing the webinar, going through the whole pitch, and we ended up selling, I think about $36,000 if I remember the number right, live on that webinar in front of this room of 100 people. And they were all, as soon as it ended and I closed the webinar, they went crazy, and it was exciting. It was so much fun, but then they saw how to do it, right? And after they saw how to do it, then they went back and they were able to model it. Okay, and if you look at anything I've ever taught or I talk about, like it's all about modeling, right? Tony Robbins taught me this initially, like if you want to be successful in life, find people who are already successful in that thing you want to do and then model them. And so I'm trying to give you guys a perfect model you can use for your stuff, okay? And so that's kind of the game plan. So have fun with it. I'm gonna have fun with it. It'll be really, really cool. And that's kind of the game plan. So with that said, I'm going to jump into the framework for today's presentation. Once again, if you listened yesterday, we talked about creating your system and teachings all based on framework. So here's the framework I built out. We're going to build on the board, and I'll be walking you guys through it. All right, so the concept and the core of this entire session is based on one thing. That's what we call the big domino. All right, so what is the big domino? Well, if you guys have ever played domino, you know what they kind of look like, right? There is a domino. All right, so some of the foundational stuff so you guys can understand this. So the first time I started thinking about this, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago now. I was at an event, and at the event they had a panel of speakers on stage. One of the guys on the stage was Tim Ferriss. And Tim was sitting there, and people are asking all the different panelists questions. And then somebody asked Tim, they're like, hey, so what's your day look like? Which is kind of a cool question, right? So what's your typical day look like? And he kind of smiled. He's like, you know what? He's like, I've had tons of people who've asked me if they can film a day in the life of Tim Ferriss. He's like, I always tell them no. And you want to know why? And I was like, yeah, I want to know why. He's like, the reason why is like, if you actually saw what a day in my life was like it's actually kind of boring. He's like, you know, most people wake up in the morning, have a huge to-do list, and I try and check off thing. He's like, for me, it's like I wake up, I meditate, I drink some tea or some coffee, I think, I go on a walk, then I read, and then I do a bunch of stuff. And he's like, and I might do that for 5 or 6 weeks until I figure out like the one thing I need to attack. And he's like, what I'm looking for is like, instead of trying to do a whole bunch of to-dos, knock out a bunch of stuff, he's like, I'm looking for the one big domino. What's the one big domino that if I was to knock that domino down, it would knock down every other domino or make them irrelevant? And he was talking about productivity, obviously, and task management, but like he said that, I was like, huh. And the more I thought about that, the more like it fascinated me, like, is that something that's true in all things? Like, is there a big domino in all parts of our life, in relationships, in business, in selling, and all sorts of stuff? And that started this thought process. Then fast forward a little while later, I was hanging out with Perry Belcher, one of the owners of Digital Marketer, and Perry is brilliant, one of my favorite people to study and to learn from. And what I was listening to him, and he was talking about the fact, he said that they went back over the last 10 years of everything that they had ever sold, and he said, I realized something really, really powerful. He said, every single time I tried to get my customers to believe more than one thing in a pitch, it failed. He said, if I tried to get them to believe 2 things, failed. 3 things, failed. If I only had to convince them of one thing, then it worked. And those offers are the ones that blew up. And he said that I came back this big domino. Like, with every product we sell, is it true that like there's one thing we need to get them to believe? And if they believe that one thing, then they have to give us money. And at first I didn't think that was true, but the more I started thinking, the more I started digging, the more I realized like that is the key, right? And I started going back through all of our stuff, and I started trying to simplify things and pull out things to the point where I was like, okay, if I'm gonna get somebody to buy this thing, if they're gonna buy ClickFunnels, or they're gonna buy my coaching program, or they're gonna buy whatever that thing might be, what's the one thing I need to get them to believe? They believe that they have to give me money. Now inside the Expert Secrets book, we have a whole bunch of cool things in there. We have like a whole section on like a sentence we put together that kind of helps you fill in and kind of figure out exactly what that thing is. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on that. I just want you thinking about that for your product. Like, what is the one thing that they have to believe, your potential customer has to believe to give you money? Okay, because there's one big domino. If you can knock that down, all the other questions and concerns and everything else becomes completely irrelevant. What is that thing? Okay, think about it for yourself. Now, and I'm gonna kind of dig deeper into this, but what's interesting is when I first met Jason Fladlin, and Jason, he sold a ton of books first, so I'm sure a lot of you guys from his audience. Jason's a brilliant marketer, and one thing he told me when he does his webinars, and this has like become huge for me and for everyone in the inner circle, he talked about when you have a webinar, you're not trying to convince somebody of like 10 or 15 or 20 different things. He's like, the webinar is built around the idea that there's one thing when you get them to believe, and then everything else is like arguments to get them to believe that one thing. And a lot of you guys make webinars and you're like, okay, I gotta believe this. Now you believe that, cool. Now you're gonna believe this. Now you're gonna believe, and you're like trying to get people to believe 4 or 5 or 6 things, or even 2 things. And that's why you're struggling with conversions and sales and all sorts of stuff. It all comes down to this, okay? And I don't know how many more ways I can stress that. I want you guys to understand, like that's it. Simplify your sales message. You guys simplify. And to do that, the first thing you do is figure out what is that thing, okay? All right, so now that you've kind of thought about that a little bit, Now, there's a reason why this domino hasn't knocked over yet, right? My goal is just to knock that over. Knock it over, all the other dominoes get knocked down and become irrelevant. And so the first thing is like, well, what is it that they currently believe? Because this is the belief, I need to get them to believe this. What do they currently believe? Okay, it's key. You can't get them to believe this unless you know what they currently believe. And on this side over here, you look at like, well, what do you believe? Could you believe something different? That's why you're in this, right? So think about your business, your market. Let's say you're in weight loss, right? Your customers believe something, which is why they're not getting the result they want, right? Yesterday we talked all about results. So they believe something, and that's why they're not getting the result. But you believe this, which is why you got the result. Okay? What is that thing that if you got them to believe, they'd be like, oh, sweet, I'm in, and everything else would disappear. Okay? That's the first thing to kind of start thinking about here. All right? Okay. There's 3 or 4 directions I can go with this, but I'm going to go, I'm going to go this way. Okay. All right. So as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about like my customers, right? And this is coming back to your customers, getting inside their mind. So what is it that they honestly believe? And why do they believe that? Okay. I want to figure out like, if I'm trying to get you to, like, let's just say I'm trying to get you, I'll use weight loss because it's like the easiest one to kind of pull. Actually, I'll use network marketing. That'll be more fun. Okay, so let's say this is network marketing, and I believe that like network marketing is really easy. I believe they can generate leads online, and we can close leads online, whatever that thing might be, right? But they believe something different. Like, why do they believe that? There's some story that they tell themselves about that gives them the reason why they kind of believe this, right? So what's that story? What was the experience or the story or the thing that happened that gave them this false belief? Okay, that's what you gotta start thinking about. What was that experience? So maybe if it was network marketing, maybe they signed up and they called a couple people and those people got offended or they got mad, they called their mom and their mom hung up on them or whatever, and like, oh, like network marketing equals pain because I called my mom and she hung up on me and now my mom won't return my calls, right? Or something. So it's like, that's the story that they have. So you have a different story and you gotta figure out, like, your story needs to trump their story if you're gonna get them to believe this thing. Does that make sense? In fact, I'm gonna jump down first because this will help more. All right, so if you guys go to the Expert Secrets book on page 132, there is a chapter called False Belief Patterns, and there's this image here, right here about false belief patterns. So I'm gonna write this down here. I'm gonna write false belief patterns. Okay, so if you do this, this is an exercise we're gonna do towards the end as well, but I've got to figure out my customer's false beliefs, right? Okay, so number one here, if you look here, there's the first image is chains of false beliefs. So here's this little dude, and there's chains on him. He's kind of like, oh, what's going on? Okay, so here is the false belief that they have. Number two, right here, is why do they believe that? What's the experience? He has a black eye in the picture here. It's hard to draw a black eye with this huge black marker. All right, so this is the experience. Number three, then we go to, well, what is the story that they've told themselves? Okay, there's the story. And then number three is Epiphany Bridge. We'll talk about that here in a second. All right, so this is story. And then this is new story. Okay. All right, so for this exercise, what I want you to think through is, okay, first off, what is their false belief that's keeping them from buying your thing or joining your group or whatever the thing is for you, right? What's the false belief that they have? So I come down here, I'm like, okay, what's their false belief? Well, their false belief is, and I'll use network marketing. So the false belief is that if I join a network marketing program, again, I will lose my friends and my family. Okay, so that's the belief that they have, right? So if I join, I lose my friends and family. I'll do this one in red so you can see it. So if I join, lose friends and family. Okay, so that's network marketing. For you, it could be something different. Weight loss could be like, if I join this weight loss program, I have to give up cake, and I love cake. I eat cake every day, right? Or if I decide to invest my money or start trying to plan financially, invest my money somewhere means that I'll have less disposable income to buy crap later on, right? Whatever it is. So like they all have a false belief. So what is that false belief for you? Okay, so think about that. Then number two is like, now why do they believe that? They had some experience, something happened in their life that gave them that belief. Okay, and you gotta understand, like, what was it? Like, why do they believe that right now? So for the network marketing, like if I join a company, then my mom and my dad and my friends will hate me, okay? Why do they believe that? What was the experience? Well, one of two things probably happened. Number one, they joined a network marketing company. They called their mom, they called their sister. She got pissed and hung up on them. And then I was like, oh, if I do that, then this, right? Or number two, their sister joined a network marketing company. She started calling them every single day. Now they screen their calls from their sister. And now they're like, oh, like I don't want to be like her. So like there's an experience that happened that makes them believe this thing, okay? And these experiences are strong. So here's the experiences like I call my sister, whatever. My sister called and she's annoying, right? Something like that, okay? Okay, so they have the false belief. This is the experience that gave them the false belief. So the story they tell themselves is what? MLM is annoying or whatever. So because of that story, they're never gonna do it, okay? And so for me, if I want to get somebody to join my company, let's say, or I need to get someone to lose weight through my program, or I need to get someone to invest finances with me, or I need to get somebody to come to my store, join my coaching program, whatever it is for you, it's different for everyone, right? You guys thinking through this for yourself. Whatever that is, I have to understand, like, this is their false belief that's keeping this domino up. If I want to shove this domino down and knock down all the rest of them, I got to figure out what's the false belief, what was the experience they had, and what's the story they're telling themselves. And then you've got to come back and you have to give them a story that trumps their story. If I can give them like my story, if my story right here trumps their story, this story will disappear and the domino will knock down. Okay, so for example, network marketing, if I come back and I tell a really good story saying, look, I understand this. I was in network marketing too. First off, I joined, my mom hung up on me. Then my sister called and she like started calling me, so I hung up on her and like, I hate this too, but guess what I found out? I thought that to be successful, you had to call your friends and family members, but this really cool thing, I've met this guy named whatever, Ray Higdon, or whatever the person you met, or whatever the thing is. You tell the story, I met this person, and guess what they told me? They told me that there's this weird thing called the internet where I could generate leads, and I don't have to talk to my friends and family. I just talk to people who actually raise their hand interested. And now I did that, and I do this thing, I get leads, I call them, they sign up, and then my mom and dad don't even know that I'm in a program. It's so awesome. And so I tell them my story, so your story, and if your story trumps theirs, then they're like, wait a minute, I thought we had to do this. You're saying I could do this and nobody will know? Oh, I'm in. Boom, domino falls, boom, knocks down all the other dominoes, makes them irrelevant, or goes away. Does that make sense? I can use this for any program. So think about weight loss, okay? So weight loss, false belief. If I diet, I have to give up cake and ice cream because I love cake and ice cream, right? Why do they believe that? Because I joined the Atkins diet at sugar-free and I had no cake or ice cream or bread and it was so annoying. Okay, so the story is diets equal no ice cream and they're angry, right? So they come back, dude, I thought that too. This whole time, like, I thought I could have ice cream, but guess what I found out? If you do this diet this way, this thing that I figured out is so cool, you can actually have ice cream twice a week and cake on the weekends and you still actually lose weight. Like, wait, are you serious? I can do that? Oh, I'm in. Boom, domino knocks down, they give you their money. Okay, that's the thing you have to understand, you guys. So what I want to do is I want to figure out for my customer, what is the one big domino that's holding them back, okay? What is this story that they're telling themselves that's keeping them from coming into working with me? Okay, we talked about this yesterday. If you think about this, right now, most of your customers and potential customers, there's a result that they want, right? They want that result. They want to lose weight. They want to make money. They want better finances. They want your supplements. They want the result that your thing gets. And right now, they're currently in some vehicle getting that, okay? If it's money, some of them are in a job, and that's how they're trying to get money, and they hate it. They're in this vehicle that sucks. Some of them are in a vehicle where, let's say it's weight loss, like they're eating whatever, or they're not doing anything, but they're thinking about it all the time. Or like, people already want the result. You don't have to create the desire for the result. It's already there. All you have to do is help people realize that like this thing that you're doing right now to get the result, your beliefs about it are wrong. And if I can get you to understand like this is the truth, come over here, then that domino knocks down and they have to give you money. Okay? Does that make sense, you guys? So that is the key to sales. If you understand that, this is the key to everything. Okay? Figuring out what is the one big domino. If I can get them to believe this, they have to give me money. Okay, when I launched the ClickFunnels presentation and the webinar and the selling for that, I was like, there's a million things I'd have to convince them that if I convince them that ours is better than Lead Pages, I convince them that Infusionsoft is confusing, ours is simple. If I convince them that our editor is better, if I try to do that, there's a billion things I got to convince them of. Okay, and I will never in a million years be able to argue every single thing like that. Then I get into like feature versus benefit versus, and it's like this huge nightmare. All I have to do is get people to believe that the only way for them to get their dreams and be successful and happy in life is to have a funnel. If I can convince them of that, they have to give me money. Okay, I was listening yesterday to an interview from one of the owners of Unbounce, which is our competitor. When we first came out, Unbounce was this huge company. Okay, they're 9 years into their company, they've got 14,000 customers, and they're growing very, very slowly, right? And so if I would have come out and be like, okay, I got to convince you that we're different or better than Unbounce, or whatever, it would have been this long haul. And instead I came in and look, landing pages are stupid. Websites are like, you're a moron if you have a website, you're an idiot. Okay, I said, if I convince them that funnels are the thing, guess what they do? They have to drop everything else. They have to leave and they have to come to us. So my only argument, if you watch the ClickFunnels presentation, the only thing I'm trying to convince people of the entire time is that funnels are the key to success, happiness, everything they want in life. You have to have a funnel. And ClickFunnels happens to be the only place that gives you funnels. Like, and since I did that, they come in droves, okay? Every argument has this. Every sales argument has a big domino, and you got to figure out what it is for you, okay? So that's the first step. And sometimes it takes a little while. But I always ask, like yesterday we were working on a presentation I'm going to be giving this afternoon, and my question to the team, we're all here together, I was like, what is the one thing we have to get people to believe if they're going to sign up for this program? What is it? Is it this? No, because there's, no. We kept going through, finally like, boom, that's it. If they believe that, then they have to join. There's no other alternatives else to align to themselves, right? So you have to figure that out in your business. And this is going to take some time. Again, we talked about yesterday, the art and the science. This is the science. The art is you figuring out how does this work for your specific business, okay? All right, so this is the first key here. Then you come down here, and the way we do this is we don't knock this down by trying to convince people logically how to sell something, okay? The way we do this is through a concept which is becoming more and more famous as I keep talking about it, and it gets me excited. I keep hearing a lot of you guys using the word epiphany, which gets me really excited. In fact, I'm part of Joe Polish's and Dean Graciosi's $100,000 group. So I pay $100,000 a year to be part of this group. And in that group, they asked me if I teach a session. So I'm like, sure. So I taught a session on the Epiphany Bridge, what I'm going to show you guys right now. And what's cool is Dean had just filmed an infomercial with Larry King. And it's really, really good. They ran on TV, it was doing awesome. And I did my presentation, I talked about the Epiphany Bridge, and Dean, in the middle of my presentation, I slammed his hand down. He's like, dang it. He's like, I've known this forever, but no one's ever explained it. And he's like, now I know what I did wrong in the infomercial. So he went and he called Larry King up. Larry King flew back out to his thing. They refilmed the intro of the infomercial. He messaged me, hey man, we just got the new cut for the infomercial. Do you want to see it? And I was like, yeah, like, why'd you redo it? And he's like, your presentation taught me, like, I remembered something watching your presentation about the Epiphany Bridge, and I realized that I missed that in this infomercial. He's like, we're running it right now, and I can't remember the numbers. It was like, they increased their conversion like 27, 28%, which in infomercial numbers is like tens of millions of dollars. Like it was huge. So I go and I watch this video and I'm watching it, and about 2 minutes into the infomercial, Dean says the word epiphany. He's like, there I was, and I had this epiphany. And I was like, I literally jumped out of my chair and I was like screaming like, ah! And so it gets me excited. More of you guys are using just that terminology. But this is the concept, and it's in the book. You've hopefully read it. If not, I'm going to explain it because it's the key to everything. When you get this, it makes life really, really easy, okay? So this is called the Epiphany Bridge. All right, so this is what the Epiphany Bridge is, okay? For you, every single one of you guys, we're normal mortals going about your everyday life. Do you remember that? Before you had superpowers and became who you are today? Like you were a normal human being. You were there, you woke up, you had breakfast in the morning, you went to work or you went to school, you got home, you watched TV, you went to bed and you fell asleep, right? That's how most of us live in life. I remember to this day, like the time that I feel like I shifted from like a normal human to like somebody different. Initially it was through wrestling. That's the first time I had my first epiphany, and other times like that, right? But most of us, we have this normal life, and then we're going along, not minding our business, and you're just minding your own business, and all of a sudden something happened. Something happened for me that got me excited about wrestling. Something happened for me that got me excited about business and about fun, about whatever it is, right? So for you, same thing happened. Like everything's normal and happy, and everything's going on, and then also something happened, and you had this epiphany. Here's the epiphany. And the epiphany was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Or whatever that thing was for you, right? Everyone had a different epiphany. And so you have this epiphany. What happens is it sends you on this journey. Here's this bridge. And you're on this journey. Right here, what happened, this is an emotional, something emotional happened. You went on this journey. And what happens, you come over on this side here. You're so excited about this topic. And you start geeking out. You start studying and learning. And in fact, I'm going to put little glasses on here to show that you're like studious. So there's your little glasses, right? And you start geeking out, and you start logically convincing yourself logically convincing yourself of whatever this thing is, right? So a good example of that, I have some equity in a network marketing company that sells a product that puts your body into ketosis, right? And so what happens is that I was speaking, I had a chance to go speak in Vegas to this group of about 100 of their top leaders. And it's funny, as I'm walking through the hotel room to get to the presentation, I'm walking through and I see in the lobby, there's all these people, and they are like, they're over here, right? They are freaking out. They are so excited. They've been studying this product and the benefits and the science and the nutrition, all sorts of stuff, right? They have this thing they're really good at called technobabble. Technobabble. One of my friends, Kim Claver, wrote a book. It's called "If Your Product's So Great, Why Is Nobody Buying It?" And she has a whole chapter in this talking about technobabble. And this is when I got this, I was like 12 years ago, I think. I read her book and I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. So technobabble, right? This is like what kills all sales. So I'm in this lobby, all these network marketers running around. They all have t-shirts on that say like, ketones are greater than glucose. And they're saying like, all these like nerdy like things, right? And they're all excited. They all like spandex pants on. They're running around. And they're so excited, which is cool. I love it. Like, oh, I love entrepreneurship. So they're running around and I see them as they're like approaching people in the lobby. And they're just like, you're like, hey, let's go get this guy. Like he's going to be in. They're running over. And then they pounce on this person and they're spewing out all this technobabble about the technology and like all this kind of stuff, right? And I'm watching these like prospects getting like pounced on and this technobabble spewing on them. All this stuff they're trying to logically convince them that this is the key to changing their life, right? And the people are like, oh, cool, yeah. And then they run away and run to the room, right? Over and over and over again. So I'm watching this and I'm kind of laughing. I'm like, oh, you guys like, oh. And it's not just them. I see this everywhere. I was on a podcast yesterday listening to a guy try to sell something and he was spewing out so much technobabble and it just made me sick to my stomach, like, ugh. And in this group, after I went through the lobby, and then I went into the event room, and I had a chance to teach these guys. And kind of the funny backstory, they didn't give me a topic when I got there, and they didn't tell me when the event was starting. So like, I literally went and I found Brian, the owner of the company. I'm like, hey man, what do you want to talk about? He's like, oh, whatever you want. I'm like, well, when are we up? He's like, oh crap, it started 5 minutes ago. So we run down to the room, we walk in, there's 100 people. And I have my backpack on. I'm literally like, okay, what do you want me to talk about? And he's like, do whatever you want. Like, these are your people, you got as long as you want. He comes up, introduces me, and then like, everyone starts clapping, and I'm walking down like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna talk about? So I'm coming down the aisle, I turn around, I look at these people, and I see everyone, and I see their eyes, and I see how excited they are like about this thing. They're so logically convinced. And I remembered earlier, 15 minutes earlier in the lobby, watching what was happening. And it's the first time I ever drew out this picture. I said, you guys, you have to understand this. Like, right now, you are logically trying to convince people that what you have is the best in the world because you have logically sold yourself on it. But that is not why you got started. It's not why you got excited. It's not what gave you the initial epiphany. There's not a single person in this room who got in here because you were sold on the fact that beta hydroxybutyrate salts was the key to you losing weight. Not one of you. No one even heard that word until like 6 months later, and you're like, oh, that's what this crap is, right? So any of you, like, no one of you guys got sold in ClickFunnels because I convinced you that our marketing automation sequence was better than blah, 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 right? And that our technology was built on Ruby on Rails, and that like none of you guys signed up for this because of that. Not one. Maybe one. Nope, I'm gonna lie. Not even one. Not one of you guys. What happened to everyone is something emotional happened to you. You had this experience, and you had this epiphany saying, holy crap, this thing is like, this is the greatest thing in the world. It tastes good, as a product, it tasted good, I felt good, or I learned about funnels and it actually worked for whatever that thing is for you, right? You had some huge epiphany, and when that happened, you're like, holy crap, this is my life. I can never go back to the world the way it used to be. And you went on this thing and you start studying and learning and you geeked out. And then you start spewing this crap on people, and that's why no one gives you money. Okay? If you want to be successful in selling anything, what you have to understand is this is the journey you have come on. And over here, this is what you're trying to do. You have to stop using technobabble, realize that people do not buy logically. You didn't buy logically and they won't buy logically. You bought emotionally. You bought because of some epiphany that happened to you. Okay? When at 2 Funnel Hacking Lives ago, we had Marcus Lemonis was our keynote speaker from The Prophet. And we had a 30-minute window before the event started to kind of get to know him. Like, we put it in the contracts. I wanted to like hang out with him and just be like, hey. And anyway, so Marcus comes in 30 minutes before, and super cool guy. He comes in like all casual, walk in this little room where we're at, and it was funny because he's like, so what's this event about? I'm like, oh, it's called ClickFunnels, and we're all excited, and this is why. And he's like, so you're a website builder? I'm like, kind of. He's like, why is everyone so excited out in the hall? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, this is not like a website building. Like, everyone's going crazy. They're really like, what's happening? And so I try to explain it to him, and then And he's like, okay, so what's ClickFunnels like? He's like, I got lots of businesses. Why do I need this? And obviously, stupid Russell, the first thing I do is I slip into technobabble. And I'm like, well, the average cart value, blah, 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 blah. And you can increase your EPs, all this stuff. And he's just like, And then I'm like, dang it, I'm losing him. Crap, abort. Why do I actually care about funnels? And I came back over here and I was like, oh yeah, this is why I care about funnels. And I said, Marcus, let me explain a story. So I told him my story about funnels. And he was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me, and he asked a question. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, how does this work in this business? I'm like, well, I do this. He's like, how about this business? I do this. I told him 3 or 4 things. And then all of a sudden, the coolest thing in the world happened. I didn't tell Marcus, like, here's the epiphany you need to have. He sat there and he said, He's like, every business needs a funnel. He had the same epiphany that I had. That's the key, you guys. He said, every business needs a funnel. And the next question was like, do you guys want to be on our show? I'm like, yeah, are you kidding me? And 4 or 5 months later, we were on The Profit, building out funnels for some of his companies. Okay? The key with this, you guys, is if you try to logically sell, nobody's gonna buy. Like, that's number 1. Number 2 is I can't just shove an epiphany down someone's throat. Okay? I'm trying to tell my story in a way that they have the same epiphany that I had. Does that make sense? If I tell you, I had this epiphany that funnels are the greatest thing in the world, you're like, okay, cool, what? Who cares? No, I have to tell a story that brings you in, and then through the story, what I want you to do is I want you to say, funnels are the greatest thing in the world. If I can get you to think it, it's not me telling you, it's you thinking it, then you will be sold. You'll have the same epiphany I had, and then you're gonna go on this journey by yourself. You'll logically convince yourself, everyone on your staff and your team, but the emotional thing is what sells people. And that's what we have to become good at doing, okay? All right, now a couple of things about this. There's so many cool things. We could go really deep. Again, in the book, it goes deeper, and there's a lot more I can share in a book than I can't always get on stage. But understand that, like, this is the key to everything, you guys. And I'm gonna tell you here in a minute, there's actually 4 Epiphany Bridge stories you need to sell anything, to knock down any domino. So I'll mention that here in a minute, but first I wanna kind of explain this, a couple other things here. So, again, my job is not to tell them my epiphany. My job is to tell them a story about how I had my epiphany, and I want them to have the same epiphany I had. Now, have you ever been in a room where, or you're there and something amazing happens to you, and so then you go find someone, you're like, you guys, I gotta tell you the story. You tell them the story, and they're like, oh, cool, yeah. And you're like, no, like, you missed it. Like, let me explain it. You tell the whole story again, and they're like, yeah, we got it. That sounds awesome, man. Like, very, very cool, right? And you're like, you're so frustrated. You're like, I guess if you would have been there, you would have got it. Anybody's ever said that before? And why would it have been different if they would have been there? Because if they would have been there, they would have been experiencing what you experienced. It's not just the words you said. You experienced something. You felt something. So if I want someone to have the same epiphany I had, I have to learn how to tell stories in a way where they feel the same thing that I felt. If they don't feel it, they're not gonna have the epiphany. Okay? So what I have to figure out how to control their state. If you study Tony Robbins, learn from him, he talks a lot about state control from a lot of different things, right? But what I have to do here is I have to control, state control. I gotta control their state to get them into the state that I need them to be able to have this epiphany. Okay? At the last Funnel Hacking Live, I showed a clip from the X-Men movie. It's the X-Men movie where they were kids and they became X-Men. And one of the scenes in there is super cool. So what happened in the scene, it's when Magneto, who becomes the bad guy in the future episodes, right? But he's a kid in Nazi concentration camp. He's trying to figure some things out. And what happens is that they're pulling him into this Nazi concentration camp. And he's like this little kid, and he starts freaking out, and they see the metal fences start bending. And people are like, wait, what? There's something up with this kid, right? So they bring him in front of one of the Nazi people, right? The head guy's Nazi party of the army, whatever. And they tell the little young Magneto, I want you to move this coin, this metal coin. And so Magneto's all shy, nervous. He's trying to move it. He's like, I can't move it. So then they bring his mom in, and the guy's like, basically, you need to move this coin, or I'm going to kill your mom. And so he gets a little nervous. He starts trying to move it, and he can't move it. And all of a sudden, the Nazi guy stands up, shoots his mom. Boom, mom falls dead. And he's looks back, and he comes back, looks at the camera for a second. He's got all this fear in his face, and then all of a sudden it turns to rage. And then he goes, and he shoves the coin, and moves the coin, starts breaking the metal cabinets, crunches the metal cabinets. The guards that shot his mom had metal helmets on, crushes their heads in the helmets, starts throwing all this, and this huge rage. And you see the pain he's going through. He's going through this experience, and he's just ripping the crap out of everything, just thrashing it all. And then the scene ends, and the Nazi guys are all clapping, yay, we got you to do this thing we need you to do, right? But what's interesting is if you watch a movie, like what happens is like in a movie, you can see these emotions, you see their face, you see the pain, you see all that. And like, that's why movie is such a powerful medium, because you can actually feel it. Like when you see that movie, like you feel so much empathy for young Magneto. Like you care about him, you have this vested interest in him now because of the story that you were taken through. And it's powerful on film. But most of us don't have the luxury of having a film crew that follows us and edits us and script writers and stuff, right? So how do we create that same thing? If you think about this, if Magneto was trying to get you this epiphany about this thing, and he comes and he tells the story, he's like, yeah, so this is bad Magneto coming, trying to convince you that his cause is good, right? Anyway, so imagine he's coming, he's like, yeah, so when I was a kid, I was Nazi Germany, they wanted me to move some metal stuff. They brought my mom in, and I couldn't move it, so they shot her, which pissed me off, so I destroyed the room, and then now I'm Magneto. You'd be like, what? They shot your mom? Like, oh yeah, it was really like, it made me mad. Like that's how most of you guys are telling your stories right now. You're like you just missed the whole thing. I have to get you into state. Okay, if you watched the video yesterday, I did this 3 or 4 times when I was telling you guys stories, right? I was talking about like the pain I had. I was talking about my hands were sweating. I was talking about like the pain, the frustration, and like if you look at a good novelist, right? When they're writing a book, they don't just like tell you this quick story about the thing, right? Like they'll spend 5, 10, 20, 30 pages building up this scene with like what's on the wall, what's happening, what are you feeling, all sorts of stuff. And then they deliver this thing that happens to you. But they spend all this time preparing the scene, getting you into state so that you can feel what happens, the impactful part of the story. That's what the best writers do. Same thing with the best storytellers. If I'm gonna give you the emotional epiphany that you have to be successful, I have to get your body into a state where you can feel what I felt. If you feel what I felt, you're more likely to have the epiphany that I had as well. And that comes down to the way you tell your story. So if I'm telling my story, instead of me just blah, 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 talking about it, I'm gonna stop and be like, okay, think about this. Think about as you were in this situation, how did you feel? Explain that. Sorry, I'm hitting my mic. How you felt. Talk about like, man, like what did it feel like? So if I'm telling a story, like, man, like I was sitting there and like, God, I got so nervous. Like I felt like I had a knife stab me in the gut. And like all the muscles tensed up and I couldn't even stand up straight because it hurt so bad. And as I was bending over, like I felt the pain in my spine because it was like, I felt like someone was sitting on my back. There's so much pressure. As I'm sitting, I looked down and like my hands were sweating and like, the water's getting in my pants. I was like, God, what am I doing? I took a breath and I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. And see, as I'm telling that story, I'm guessing some of you guys felt that, like you felt like the pressure, you felt the things, right? I'm explaining how I felt, because if I can explain how I felt, then you're gonna feel something similar. Us as humans, we have this weird thing with empathy where it's like, when I tell you about the pain I'm going through, you'll experience some of that pain, you'll feel it. And so as a storyteller, I have to do that. They're great at doing it in Hollywood, you have to be great at doing it as well. If you're gonna be able to tell a story in a way that trumps their story. Because they feel this pain right now. They went through this experience, so they have a lot of pain and emotion and stuff tied into this thing, right? So if I come in, I'm like, oh yeah, dude, you're an idiot. You don't need to call your mom. You just get leads on the internet. It's really easy. They're like, easy for you to say, screw you, man. This sucked. I have a ton of pain associated with this. They're not gonna listen to you and the domino's not gonna fall. I have to get them in the same state I was in when I had this emotional thing, and if I do that, then they're like, wow, God, he does know where I came from. He went through the same path that I did. He struggled just like I did. He went through calling his mom, and that sucked for him. And like this is what happened. Like they have that. They have rapport. They build this thing with you, and then you share the epiphany. Like, wow, I guess that would work for me. It worked for him. I like him. I have rapport with him. He went through the same pain that I went through, and now it becomes really easy. Okay. So this is the foundation, guys. It's so vitally important. I want you guys understanding this. Like this is the key to knocking down this. Okay. All right, now one more little mini caveat I'm gonna throw in here before we talk about what the 4 stories are. One of the big problems that you guys have, especially as experts, is you're smart. And honestly, like being smart is one of the worst possible things that can happen to any of you guys. In fact, the smarter people are typically, the worse they are at selling. Okay? And this is the reason why. For some reason, when we were little kids, we were taught that like having a big vocabulary was really cool and you were smart if you had big vocabulary, right? And so what happens is that we come back and we start using this technobabble crap again. We assume people know what we're talking about, okay? And so there's a little trick that I kind of put together. It's in the Expert Secrets book. I want to give this to you because it's going to help you guys a ton as you're doing this. It's a concept that we call, I'm going to put it up here, it's this little, call it kind of like bridge. Okay, what kind of like bridge is every time I hit a word, technobabble. Sometimes like if I'm explaining something, I have to use technobabble because like that's what it's called. And like, but the thing is like if I'm telling you an emotional story and all of a sudden you drop some technobabble, the second you say that, I'm like, wait, what? I don't know what he's talking about. Oh, and like it takes all this rapport you're building through a story and it like repels it instantly. They're like, whoa. And they stop listening to you the second you drop technobabble. Because like, I don't know what that means. And it just ruins the pattern of the story. Okay? When I was writing the pitch for this for Prove It, the network marketing company, and I was writing this pitch about ketosis, there's all these really big words like ketosis. And so I'm explaining this thing in a video, trying to like make this video like hit somebody and like give them the emotional impact they need to sign up for this thing so we can knock down the big domino. And I keep having to use these stupid words like ketosis. And I'm like, but that's the word, that's what it is. Like, what do I do? So what I do is you make these little kind of like bridges. So what happens is this over here is something that people understand. You understand? Over here is your technobabble. And every time I hit technobabble, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna grab this person over here and say, okay, we hit some technobabble. Let me take you back over here on this side of the bridge and relate it to something you understand. So in the video I did for Prove It, when I was like, what it's gonna do is it's gonna put your body into a state called ketosis. And instantly everyone like, whoop, blocks over. And then I stop and I say, it's kind of like, and I take them on a journey back to something they would understand. But I put your body in a state called ketosis. It's kind of like having a million motivational speakers running through your body. That's what it feels like to be in ketosis. People are like, oh, cool. I know what motivational speakers are. If I had a million run through my body, like, oh, I'm gonna feel awesome, right? And all of a sudden, like, oh, that's what ketosis feels like. Sweet. Okay? Later on in the video, some of you guys have probably seen the video, some of you guys haven't. If you see that video, there's a part where I talk about, again, another concept tied to ketosis, and I can't remember exactly what the phrase was, but I said something, it's kind of complicated, it's technobabble, and I stopped and I said, it's kind of like, if you guys ever play the game Pac-Man, you know how most of the game, like you're running away from the ghost, and you're eating little pellets, and you're trying not to get caught, but every once in a while you eat one of those power pellets, and as soon as you eat that power pellet, then you're on. And then all of a sudden, like, you turn around, and then you're chasing the ghost, and you're trying to eat them. Like, that's what it feels like to be in ketosis. That's what it feels like to be on, right? So I'm taking, again, a complex thing, and I'm taking it back to something that they understand. So for you, think about this. Every time I say the word funnel, like that is technobabble, right? But it's what it is, so I have to use that. So what is a funnel? I have to figure out like what is the kind of like bridge? Funnels, autoresponders. In your business, it could be financial planning, whatever. Like I watch car commercials. And this is funny because I hope there's someone out there who works at a car dealership because you guys are the worst at this by far. So like I watch these car commercials and they're always like, zero down, no, blah, 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 blah. And they string off like 30 technobabble words in a row. Like, you can get a Hemi with a this and a that and a blah, blah, all these things. And I'm sure there's people who understand that, who buy. But this is Russell here. I'm not that smart about cars. I have a lot of money. I buy weird cars. I've had a Ferrari, I've got a Corvette. Like, I buy cars. I don't know what any of those words meant. Every time they list off that technobabble, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what a Hemi is. Some of you guys are laughing at me because you probably do. I don't know what that means. If you said a Hemi, it's kind of like freaking having a gorilla in your car shoving you up a bridge. I'd be like, dude, I need a freaking Hemi. But I don't even know what that means, right? They talk about like all the financing terms. I don't know what that means. I'm gonna pay cash for my car. So all these financing terms just confuse me. I'm like, that sounds confusing, so I don't buy it from them, right? Like car companies, like, any company, I promise you guys, you have so much technobabble. I was listening to the podcast again with the owner of one of our competitors, and he's spewing out technobabble, and I'm like, I'm so grateful that all he knows is technobabble. It makes my job so much easier because all I have to do is throw in a couple kind of like bridges. And people are like, that seemed really cool, but I have no idea what he's talking about. Russell makes things simple. That's it. How do you make things simple? Okay, simplicity. So when you are telling these epiphany bridge stories, every time you hit a word that's technobabble, you have to stop instantly and say, well, it's kind of like this. Then they'll be like, okay, cool, and then you can continue on your story. If you don't, every time you hit technobabble, you're going to confuse people. Now, obviously, if you can pull technobabble 100% out, that's the best. But sometimes there's words and phrases you have to use, and kind of like bridge will save you every single day. Okay? It's funny, after we taught this at Fun Hacking Live, then Todd, one of my co-founders in ClickFunnels, he got on stage and he was talking about something and he stopped. He's like, it's kind of like this. And it was really, really cool the way he did it. So this concept works. Use it over and over and over again anytime you're telling a story. Okay. All right, so to recap, the big domino, this is the key to everything. You gotta tell a story in a way that's gonna knock down this big domino. This is how you tell a story. Okay, now I'm going to move into the story structure. Now, if we had like 6 days, I could go really, really deep in this. But a lot of stuff's in the Expert Secrets book, and I don't want to reteach the Expert Secrets book. My goal is to use this training as a supplement for it. So if you come into here, and the big domino is chapters. Actually, secret number 5 starts on page 85. So you go through some of this, which is kind of cool. And it'll go deeper into this concept so you guys understand it even better. Secret number 6, we talk about the Epiphany Bridge, which is what we just covered right now. We talk about technobabble. We talk about kind of like bridges in here. And then secret number 7, we move into a concept called the hero's 2 journeys. Okay. Now, kind of give you a recap. Initially, I learned this from a guy named Michael Haig. And Michael is one of the screenwriters, or not screenwriters, he's a screenwriting consultant. So people in Hollywood will write will write their screenplays, and they'll hire Michael to come in and make sure that the story structure is correct. He's done it for people like Will Smith and a whole bunch of like amazing people. If you ever seen the movie Hitch, Will Smith wrote Hitch, and it was based on, it's funny because they based the whole thing on Michael Haig's process. He calls it Hero's 2 Journeys. And so he did that, and then they met later, and he was like, and they talked about Hitch, and he's like, Michael was like, I love that movie. He's like, oh, because I was actually studying your stuff when I wrote the screenplay for that. And they became friends afterwards, and then worked together, all sorts of stuff. But he figured out, I don't know if he was the one that figured it out, but he wrote, he's written a couple of books and some audio books and stuff on this concept called Hero's 2 Journeys. And he actually came and spoke at one of our events teaching this. And so he taught the Hero's 2 Journeys, and I was like, it is insanely cool. He showed how like almost every Hollywood movie from the beginning of time till now, the ones that have been successful, they all follow the same script called the Hero's 2 Journeys. And he showed the pattern, how it all works. He's like, doesn't matter if it's Titanic, if it's Rocky, if it's whatever, like the script is basically the same. He's like, so much so you can be like, okay, page 13 in every single screenplay is when the hero does this. Page 62 is when this happens. Page 90, and it's like, it's fascinating to start seeing the process, how similar it is. And so what's cool is after he got done speaking to us, this is 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, cool, how do we use that in like what we do? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, crap. There's got to be a way. And it took me like 5 years. I kept listening to stuff, going through it. And as I was writing this book, I wanted to sketch out. So actually on page 103, I sketched out like, here's the Hero's 2 Journeys that he explains in all his training. And this is like, anyway, I'm gonna be sending this to Michael as a gift, but like, this is his teaching in a drawing. So there it is right now. And I'm not gonna go deep into this because I just have this chapter here so you understand like the story process from all story. But then the question is, how does this work for us? Like people like us who are trying to tell a story, and sometimes that story is gonna be, I got 3 minutes on an interview to tell my story. Sometimes I've got an hour and a half to tell my story. What's the script that we plug it in to get my Epiphany Bridge story the right way that has all of these things that we get from the Hero's 2 Journeys? And so secret number 8 then in the book is the Epiphany Bridge script, okay? And this is how you actually tell these stories. Do you guys want to see that? Should we break that one down for you? We got some nods over here. All right. I was going to do it anyway, but now I really will do it. Okay, so the Epiphany Bridge script. It's right here. P-I-P-H-A, Epiphany. Okay, Epiphany Bridge script. So as you go through here, the script's on page 114, and then the questions are on page 115. So I'll kind of write this out really quickly. So we have back here, we've got backstory. Here's a person, and there's desires. 1 and 2, there's the external, and then the internal. From there, they hit a wall on this journey. And from here, they have, this epiphany. Here's your light bulb epiphany moment. From there is a plan. From there, there's conflict. And then there's 2 outcomes. The journey of achievement, and then the journey of transformation. Okay, there's a better version in the book, but that's kind of what it looks like. So let me kind of walk you through this. So in any story I'm telling, it starts with a backstory, right? Why do we start with the backstory? Because we want to build rapport with people, and I want to help them to understand that their current story is wrong. If I just come in and like try to trump them with like, oh, this is the truth, like if there's not rapport, people will not listen to you, okay? So I build rapport by coming back, so like, I was in the same spot you were at. Let me tell you my journey. And you start with your backstory always. If you notice my stories, I always start with the backstory. I go back to that, right? So the backstory then, what we talk about in the backstory is kind of the situation you're in, and we talk about your desires. What's the external desire? Like, I wanted that result, right? The result we talked about yesterday, that's your external desire, okay? And what's cool is that's typically your audience's external desire. I want to make money. I want to lose weight. Here's an external desire, right? And that's where most people stop. And that's where storytelling, most people are really bad at, is they talk about the external desire. If you watch the people out there who are selling, you can call them scammers, spammers, whatever you want to call them, they're always talking about the money, the bling, that's what they're always talking about, external. And it's like, you can pitch someone, you can convert them once on an external, but they're not going to build rapport with you. They're not going to become a mass movement. They're not going to become a tribe if you're just pitching the external, because people don't actually care about the external. So the second thing is you talk about your internal. What's the reason why you want that result? What is it? Not that you want to lose weight. No one really cares about that. You want to lose weight because something internally wants it, because you want love from your spouse. You want your kids to respect you. You want whatever. What's the real reason? Like, why do you start a business? Yeah, you want to make $1 million a year. That's your external desire. Sweet. That's not real. The real thing is the internal desire. Like, why are you doing that? I want security for my home, for my family. I want to wake up in the morning and know that I can provide as a man, right? There's the internal stuff that we have. Now, most people will never talk about the internal. So in your story, if you talk about the internal, guess what happens? People are like, oh, that's all I want too. I don't really want $1 million. I just want security too. I want to wake up in the morning knowing that my house payment's covered for. I want to make sure that my mom, who whatever, I want to make sure that she thinks I'm cool, that she respects me, she loves me. I want to make sure that my spouse is proud of me. I want to make sure my kids, I want my kids, when I die, I want that to be cool. Listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, it's interesting. He keeps talking about I want to win the jets. I want to buy the jets, his external desire. And then he's like, if you ask him, you listen to what he really wants. When I die, he's like, I want everyone I know, I want everyone on earth to come to my funeral. That's the thing. How many people come to his funeral? That's his internal desire. When I die, I want to make sure people are there. I want to make sure I matter. That's his real thing. The jets are a thing that gives him an external drive. The internal is big. So when you start sharing your internal drives, why you actually wanted this thing, that's when people connect to you, because nobody talks about that. There's so much fear of us releasing that and talking about those things, right? It's the vulnerability part of this. The more vulnerable you are, the more people will connect and come to you. It's interesting, in our inner circle, I've got 100 people in my inner circle, not this last set of meetings, but ones before. The theme between all 4 groups, all 100 of the entrepreneurs, over and over and over again, was the reason why they were not successful is they were all focused on talking about the external and posturing. None of them were talking about the internal. And everyone that was having success were the ones who broke down and were vulnerable, and they shared their internal desires. This is the key, you guys, in your story. Okay? So you tell out the backstory. The backstory is all about connection with the attractive character, with you in your story. So you tell the story, what you externally wanted, but then the real reason is this. I really wanted blah, and you talk about your internal desires. Then you go, and I was in this vehicle trying to get the result, but I couldn't get it. It sucked. I hated my job. I hated my weight loss plan. I hated my coach. I hated my, whatever the vehicle they're currently in isn't working. And they hit this wall, and they were so frustrated that you had to change. You had to shift something, right? So you went on this journey. If you notice, every movie, think about Frodo in The Hobbit, right? He's here, hits a wall, he has to leave. I think the first 5 or 10% of every single movie is when the hero leaves, physically leaves where they're at, right? So I'm in this thing that sucks. I have to go on a journey. I have to physically leave the vehicle I'm in to try to get the result. I was trying to call my friends and family. It sucked. I had to leave and try something different. I had to go on this journey, right? It's all about this journey. You hit a wall, and you left on a journey, and then somewhere in this journey, that's when this whole thing happened, right? She's telling your story. You had this epiphany of oh my gosh, I needed a funnel. That was the key. If I had that, everything would be easy. Oh my gosh, if I could get my body in ketosis, everything would be easy. Oh my gosh, if I just shifted my financial strategy, whatever, if I just, whatever that thing is for you, right? You tell that story. If I had a supplement that had all these kind of things, then it would blah, 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 right? You tell the story, you had the epiphany. Then from there, you have a plan. So then I had the epiphany, then I tried this, and then you start telling about the plan of how you executed on it. And then once again, most of us entrepreneurs want to position and posture ourselves as and then I just made $1 billion. I was infallible at that point. No, nobody relates to that, and it's not true anyway. You have a plan, and then you introduce the conflicts. What were the struggles you went through on this journey? If you don't, conflict is what gets people to care. If you just have, I made a plan, and then it worked, and boom, I'm rich, I'm skinny, whatever that is, no one cares. What was the conflicts you hit along the way? And at the end of it, you share the resolution. Now there's 2 things, right? Right here we had the hero's 2 journeys. The external, the goal. Frodo wanted to destroy the ring. So Rocky Balboa wanted to beat Apollo Creed. There's the external thing, right? So the end of it, you talk about what happened here. What was the achievement? Oh, Frodo destroyed the ring, right? There's the achievement. Rocky, in the first one, he didn't. Half the time in the movies, they don't actually get the thing they set out to achieve, right? Rocky Part 1, Rocky got jacked by Apollo, but he lasted the time, right? So he got the achievement, but he didn't actually win. But what's the achievement? Like, sweet, so I got my goal. And like, you talk about the achievement you got, but then you come back to like the internal. But what was really cool is like, I came home that night and hung out with my kids, and they were like so proud of me. Like my dad called me and told me this, and it was like so cool. Like, what was the transformation you had? So there's the Epiphany Bridge script, you guys. That is the key. That is the script that goes into here to tell the story. And if you do this the right way, this follows the storytelling process that everyone has used from the beginning of time that works. And this is how we use it inside of in our world here as experts, okay? Now, sometimes it's kind of hard. Like, how do you remember all this? So for me, I have this printed out on my desk. As I'm telling stories, I'm glancing, okay? And I'm telling, okay, let me tell you my backstory, blah, 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 blah. And then like, what I really wanted was this thing over here, but like, internal. So, but these are like, what I really was kind of hoping for, if I'm completely honest, was this. And I wanted this thing, and you just kind of follow the process here. Now the next page, on page 115, to make it even easier, is it okay if we over-deliver? I just want to keep making it easier and easier. So on page 115, then we come through and it's like, okay, here's the actual questions to make this even easier. So my questions is the backstory. So what is your backstory that gives us a vested interest in your journey? You tell the answer. Cool. What was it you wanted to accomplish? What was the external struggle you're dealing with? Oh, I'm broke. I want to make money. Okay, what was the internal struggle you're dealing with? Boom. Number 3, the wall. What was the wall or problem you hit within your current opportunity that started you on this new journey? Trying the Atkins diet, it sucked. I ate cake every night. I wasn't even close to doing it, so I decided to try something new. There's the wall I hit. I went on this journey. Boom. What was the epiphany you experienced? A new opportunity you discovered? And when I had this epiphany, here's my new opportunity. Ketosis, it's amazing. What's the plan? What's the plan you created? What was the plan you created to achieve your desire? What was the conflict that you experienced along the way? What was your end result? Up here, what was the transformation you experienced? Those 8 questions are the secret, you guys. There's how you tell your stories over and over and over and over again. Okay, how many of you guys are getting excited about this? Okay, hopefully I don't get in trouble for sharing this, but this was amazing. So, Kaylin, who is, if you go to expertsecrets.com, she's the very first success story down there on the bottom. What was cool is she's a master of this. She's one of the best in our group at telling stories, knocking down dominoes, and the people that are able to impact because of it is huge. They have over 500 women a day joining into their programs. It's crazy because she's mastered this. Like, she's one of the best. In fact, I keep trying to, if they didn't make so much money, I would hire her to run ClickFunnels and I can just go back to bed because she's better than me at this. Like, she's amazing, right? But she's mastered all these kind of things. And what was interesting, she had this idea at the last meeting that she told me. I was just like, I can go home now. I got my value. It's my own meeting, but like, that was amazing. Like, it was so cool. So what she did is she knew that like her story connected with some people, right? And so her audience was coming, but there's a whole bunch of the market, in her market, they're in the weight loss market, that don't respond to her. One good example is like, she's not a mom. So the mom's like, oh, well, you can do it because you're a young girl. So she wasn't connecting with mom. So she understood that. And so she did. She went out to all of her success stories and she said, I want you guys all to come and I want to tell your story live on Facebook Live or whatever it is. And so if you have a cool story about how what we've done has helped you, I want you to fill out this form. And so she created a form, and the form basically had 8 questions. What is your backstory that gives us a vested interest in your journey? And they filled that out. And then boom, and they filled out all of these things right here. And then she had their entire story written out, emailed to her when they filled out this form. And then when she interviewed on Facebook Live, she was able to say, okay, so, so-and-so, what's your journey? What's your backstory? Like, why should we care about your story? And then people tell the story. And then typically, some success stories or testimonials, they get awkward or shy on camera, right? But she knew, she already had the story written out. She's like, well, tell us a story about your dad, or tell us a story about this. And then it started going deeper and deeper and telling that story. And she was able to get the emotional connection because she knew the story. She had it pre-written out. She knew the entire story and where she was taking somebody through this interview to be able to get it. We've got other people in our inner circle now who are using this with all their testimonials. They set up a camera at their events or after someone buys their product, and they just ask them these questions. And they go through it. And these testimonials now become powerful because it's actually telling their journey in a really, really cool way. When someone asks me, if I'm on a podcast, someone asks me a question, guess what I slip into? I slip into Epiphany Bridge stories. When I'm doing webinars, there's 4 Epiphany Bridge stories I will tell on every single webinar, which we'll talk about next. I'm using this over and over and over and over and over again. This is the key. A bunch of you guys were asking in the questions before this training, like, well, how do we sell this stuff? I want to know how to sell. Like, what's the sales? I'm going to talk about sales. This is sales. This is sales of the future, okay? Telling emotional stories that are true. That's it. That's it. It's really simple. You don't have to learn the next technique and how to blah, blah, like all those kind of things. Like, it's getting good at telling stories because this is the key. People, they want to give you money. I think we have a fear sometimes asking people for money. We love to buy crap. How many of you guys, like, when you buy something, you're just like, it feels so good. You pull your credit card, you type it in, you're like, I bought that thing. Like, it feels so good. Your people want to give you money more than anything. When you understand that this is a big thing, a lot of times I think people don't want to buy stuff. Like, I have to convince them to buy. No, they want to buy. Really, really bad. All of us love buying. It's an addiction. It's a habit. Like, we all have it. Pretty sure we all have it. Yeah, we all have it. I've got it. Bad. All of you guys have it. We have it. We want to buy, but something happens. We see this thing, we're like, and all of a sudden, instantly, all these false beliefs. Well, that doesn't work because of this. And so, like, they're convincing themselves not to buy even though they want it. When I can come in and be like, look, this thing right here, this is actually really, really good. Why don't you want it? And they're like, because this. Like, that's why? You didn't even know. Let me tell you a story. Like, this is actually the truth. And they're like, holy crap. Are you serious? Boom, I want that now. Domino falls. They have to buy. They have to give you money, which gives you the ability now to help them and serve them. Okay? So these are the pieces. All right, you guys getting excited so far? There's one more layer on top of this we're going to add in next to make this thing complete. Maybe 2 layers. All right, we'll keep going. There's a lot more layers. Okay, I'm going to break this down here in the middle. Break this here. We've got some. Okay, so if you notice when I speak, I do a lot of Epiphany Bridge stories. Some of them are short. Some of them are like 30 seconds to a minute long. Some are hours long. Like, it just kind of depends, right? There's different length for all these things. And so that's what's cool about this. I can tell this story in 2 minutes, and I can tell a story in 2 hours. It's just how much details, how much emotion, how much feeling can I put into it. And so that's the power of this, is you start getting better at this and understanding your stories. Now, there are a lot of stories you're going to use, and you should be using over and over and over again. But for the webinar that we're going to be creating, that you're going to be doing, there's basically 4 core stories you need to understand. Okay? So story number 1, the 4 stories. Yes. All right. So story number 1, we call the origin story. Okay. It's your origin story. What is the origin story that got you excited about your thing? Okay, that's usually your original Epiphany Bridge story. If you listen to my thing, like my original Epiphany Bridge story that I talk about with funnels is my potato gun. How many of you guys have heard my potato gun story at least 50 million times, right? That's my origin story. That's how I figured this whole thing out. That's like why I got excited about funnels. Okay? If you haven't heard my Epiphany Bridge story, let me tell it to you. All right, here's my backstory. I was in college, and I was a dumb college kid. I was a wrestler, barely graduating, but just getting good enough grades to wrestle. They always told me that C's get degrees, and that's true. All you have to have is a 2.0 to be able to compete. So I was in competing, wrestling, having the time of my life, and then I met the most beautiful girl in the world, and she is hot, and I love her, and I was like, I gotta marry this girl. She's amazing. And so I begged her, and I pleaded, and I tried. It was like by far the hardest sell. And after like 3 months, I closed the deal, and we got married, and it was awesome. Now, in Mormon time, that's a long time. I know most people's world, you're like, you got to date for like 6 years. And yeah, for me, it's like, what's wrong with you, Russell? You've known her for 3 months. Why aren't you married yet? I'm like, I know, I'm trying to close the deal. So it was a really hard sell for me. Eventually, closed the deal. She married me. Awesome. Life was good. And then something, and then something really scary happened. My dad messaged me like, cool, you're getting married. I'm cutting you off. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, when you are by yourself, I support you. When you're married, like you're a man now. You have to take care of yourself. I was like, Dad, that's not good because I'm not a man yet. He's like, well, if you want to get married, you kind of are. I'm like, crap. Okay. So I had this desire. It's like, I got to figure out how to make money because I'm wrestling. I'm not giving up wrestling. That's why I was put on this earth, was to wrestle. At that point, I'm like, I'm not giving up wrestling. Screw that. I got to figure out another way. And so I got to make money. That was my thing. And I'm like, but the real reason is like, my cute little wife, she's amazing. Like, as soon as we decided to get married, like, she got a second job. So she's working all during the day while I'm at school wrestling, having the time of my life. Then at night, she got a second job serving tables at Chili's so that we could pay for our rent while I was out wrestling with my buddies at night. Like, so much fun. But I was like, what kind of man am I? Like, I'm making my wife work 2 jobs so I can go have fun. And I realized, like, God, like, I got to figure out, like, how to help support her because, like, eventually she's going to want kids and a family and all sorts of stuff. Like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not really that good of a husband. Like, well, I'm not really pulling my load at all. I was like, I got to figure this out. So I went on this journey. I started trying to figure out how to make money. I went online. There was a bunch of stuff happening. I tried selling stuff on eBay. Didn't work. I tried selling stuff on Craigslist. I tried to buy stuff on Craigslist, sell on eBay, trying to sell stuff. And like, I had little incremental successes, but nothing that we could write home about. In fact, I remember the first summer we were married, I'm on the computer trying to figure some stuff out. And Colette came home from her second job. And she's like, hey, do you think this summer you could get a job or something? And I was like, no, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm starting a business. And she's like, no, you really need to get a job because I'm doing 2 right now and you're home playing on the computer all day. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll go get a job. So I got a job and it sucked. I'm in this vehicle. I hated this job. But I was just, at the night, I'm trying to figure this out, trying things out. And I'm trying all sorts of stuff. And finally, I learned about information products, which was like the coolest thing in the world. I was like, information products, Because if I make one, I can sell it over and over and over again. So I just gotta work hard once and then sell it a whole bunch of times. I was like, sold. That is like the vehicle to get me the result that I actually wanted. So I started a bunch of things and I realized at first, like, I'm not good at anything. I'm like, crap, what should I make info product about? And I was like, well, I do wrestling. I'm like, problem is wrestlers are all broke. Crap, what else am I good at? I got nothing else. I'm like, dang it. Okay, well, And so I got to figure something out, thinking, and all of a sudden one day, spring break, all the wrestlers are gone, having a party, and my buddy and I, Nate Plone and me, were the only two wrestlers that weren't married, that were married, sorry. And so all of our buddies are off, heading to Vegas, having fun, gambling, whatever people do, and we're at home because our wives are working and we feel too guilty to ditch them and go to Vegas. So we're like, okay, we're watching movies all day, hanging out, and we're like, our wives are gonna think that we're not doing anything, we should do something. He's like, do you wanna make a potato gun? Which is like the logical first question to ask. I'm like, heck yeah, dude, let's make a potato gun. Like, I don't even know what that is, but that sounds awesome. And so we jumped online, started Googling potato gun plans, and we figured things out, went to Home Depot, and we spent the entire week while our wives were working, supporting us, making potato guns, and it had so much fun. And then at the end of the week, when the wives got off work, we went out in the mountains, we shot them, and it was like a great time. And so that was what was happening. And then what was interesting is that next week I went back to school, and I'm sitting there in class, it's a finance class, my teacher's talking about who knows what, bored out of my mind, as most entrepreneurs are. I'm looking at the sky, like wondering when the clock's gonna ring, and all of a sudden I had an idea. I was like, wait a minute, I wonder if I was the only person this weekend thinking about potato guns. There's gotta be other people. And I just learned earlier about a website, it was called Overture back then, for the old timers who remember that. So I like acted like I had to go to the bathroom, and I ran out of my class, slipped in the computer lab, went to Overture. It was inventory.overture.com. I typed in potato gun plans, boom, and I thought there were 18,000 people a month searching for potato gun plans. And I was like, I was one of those people, and there's nobody selling anything on potato gun plans. I should be that guy. So I instantly find Nate in the hallway. He's like, dude, let's go make a potato gun DVD. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I can explain later. Are you in? He's like, sure, let's do it. So we went that next night. We borrowed a little video camera from somebody we knew. We went to Home Depot and we filmed us buying the pipes. Like, I'm doing this because the first Home Depot we went into, we got kicked out because I was asking the guy, like, hey, do you have these kind of pipes? He's like, what are you making? I'm like, potato guns. As Nate's walking with the camera, and they're like, you can't buy that stuff here, and he kicked us out. So the next Home Depot, like 5 miles down the road, like we had it hidden in the coat, the camera, as we're like filming everything. So it's kind of, if you've seen the DVD, some of you have seen it, it's kind of secretive and cool. So we got the thing, built the gun, did the whole thing, made a DVD, started selling online, and that's how I had my first success. And it was awesome. We were making a bunch of money. I was paying $20 a day on Google Ads. I was making like $40 a day through people buying DVDs, and I was rich. I was supporting my wife. We netted $20 a day, which for us was like, it was awesome. So we were going to movies, eating dinner, like it was awesome. And then one day, overnight, gone, it disappeared. And it didn't work. What happened was Google jacked their prices up. So we were spending $40, $50 to sell a DVD now, and it just didn't work. And I was all sad and depressed. And then something cool happened. One of my friends called me up, and he's like, dude, and he had similar business to me. He's like, I figured out this thing. He's like, you know how McDonald's does upsells? Like you order a burger and they're like, hey, do you want fries with that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how often do you say yes to that? I'm like, every time. He's like, so do I. So I thought, what if I did the same thing on my website? He's like, I sold the DVD. On the next page, I was like, hey, do you want this too? And he said, 30% of people right now who buy the first thing are buying the second thing. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, it means that now I'm making a crap ton more money. He's like, my upsells work, which means now I can pay money on Google again. He's like, you got to figure out an upsell for your potato gun thing. I'm like, well, people that buy potato guns, what else do they need? He's like, well, they probably need like potato gun kits. I'm like, I don't know how to make a kit. I'm sure there's liability. I'm not going to do that. And he's like, well, maybe there's something you can do. So I started Googling. I ended up finding this guy in northern Idaho who actually sold potato gun kits. Like, how cool is that? So I did a deal with him. I said, I'm going to do an upsell, selling your kits. He said yes. Then people bought the DVD, and the upsell was like, hey, do you want me to ship you out a kit? And just like he said, 20 to 30% of people who bought the DVD started buying the kit, and that was my first funnel. And suddenly it worked again. And I went back to Google, and it worked. Like, I was able to spend $40 a day. Like, it now cost me because of the upsells, we were profitable, and suddenly like, I was back in business. Now for me, potato guns isn't the biggest market in the world, but I got it. I was like, the secret is funnels. Like if I have a funnel, that's the key. And I was like, I could replicate this in markets that actually have a lot of people who care about this. So replicate it in the dating market and weight loss and supplements. We did it over and over and over again. And for like 8 years of my life, all I was doing was building these funnels. And they were making tons of money. I was the rich kid in college. We were driving nice cars, all sorts of stuff. And it was so cool. Like I was supporting my wife, and it was awesome. But the problem was that for us, it took us between 2 to 3 months every single time we wanted to build a funnel. This is how it worked. I would log into Microsoft front page and I would design the copy of the sales letter, whatever it was. Then I sent it to a designer. He'd have to design it. Then we sent it to a website designer who would slice in HTML. We had to send it to the programmer who then programmed it. Then we had to send it to somebody else, set the shopping cart, the autoresponder, the analytics. And it took like 8 people and 3 months to launch every single funnel. And most funnels cost us, on the low end, about $30,000 per funnel. And it was hard. And what was annoying is that 1 out of 10 funnels failed. Or excuse me, opposite. 1 out of 10 funnels worked. So we were looking at every year or so we'd have maybe one hit that would make money for the rest of them. And so we got frustrated, right? And so what happened is we decided to build a tool that would make it easy for us to build funnels. And this cool thing came out called ClickFunnels. And now I can build a funnel. Literally, one took us 3 months before and 8 people I can do now in an hour by myself. And they look better, they convert better, and it's done. And that was a cool thing. So I'm able to build funnels, but the coolest thing is that because of that, like, not only can I build funnels fast, like I can actually spend more time with my kids, my family. I got my kids building funnels now. We're building funnels as a family. It's like the most exciting, fun thing. And at the same time, we've changed the world. We've had right now 41,000 other people just like you who are building funnels. And it's so amazing. Okay, so that's my origin story. How many of you guys now, that was it? It just knocked the domino down for you. You're like, holy crap. Dude, I need a funnel too. And apparently ClickFunnels is how we all do it. All right, I'm in. Okay, for a lot of you guys, that origin story is all you need to knock down the domino. Boom. Okay? So think about that. So that's the first key. Hopefully you guys just learned a lesson there, right? Origin story is the first story. And for some of you guys, the origin story is enough to knock down the big domino, to get people to believe what you need them to believe, to get them to come and follow you into your movement, buy your product, buy your service, whatever it is for you. Okay? Now, a couple things about humans. We're stubborn a lot of times. And so what normally will happen, because if that's all it was, like my webinars would be 20 minutes long, I'd tell a story and they would close. And that will close a percentage of the people, right? But there's a big percentage of people that like, they're all excited, like, sweet, that's awesome. And all of a sudden, boom, all the red flags start popping up. And typically there's three things that'll pop up, okay? 1, 2, 3. 3 false beliefs that are gonna pop up. Okay, the first false belief, after they hear your origin story, is gonna be like, that sounds awesome, I'm in. And they're like, wait a minute, wait, hold on. So right now I'm in this current vehicle trying to get my result. I've been doing it for a while. Maybe I don't like it, but like, you know, it's security. I know what it is. It's a known thing. You're telling me to get in this other vehicle, this new vehicle, to get that result. Your story made sense. I'm excited, but like, I have all this fear about me abandoning my current vehicle, my current opportunity to get into this new one. So they have all sorts of fears about the vehicle or the opportunity. Okay, they have a bunch of fears about that. The second thing, after they believe, like, okay, cool, all right, that vehicle's right, I feel comfortable, I'm good with that. Then they're like, wait, but I don't know if I can do it. I know you did it, Russell, but you're so smart and cool and amazing. Well, thank you. But they're like, I don't know if I can do it. I'm different, right? And so the next thing is their internal fears. Those internal fears. Okay, so here, the vehicle, for me, I make funnels. Funnels are the greatest thing in the world. If I can convince them that funnels are the greatest thing in the world, then they're like, sweet, I'm in. But so then over here it's like, okay, well, I believe in funnels, but I don't know if I can do funnels. And I gotta show them like, no, you actually could do it. I did it, you like, it's really simple. And if I can get them to be like, oh yeah, I could do that. Then the next thing, like, okay, well, I believe funnels are the greatest thing in the world. I believe I could actually do it, but I don't know how to get traffic to my funnel. So there's an external thing, right? So there's this external thing that we all fear about. So it's like, cool, I believe funnels are the greatest thing in the world. Cool, I believe I can do it, but I don't know how to get traffic. Therefore, I cannot give you money. So I got to figure that. Like, how can I show them that traffic's actually easy? If I get that, guess what happens? All these things fall, and the big domino knocks over. Okay. Now notice one thing. I'm not trying to convince you of 3 new things. This is where people have a lot of make the big mistake. We talked about earlier, belief. I need to get you to believe one thing. This is the only thing I need to get you to believe. These are different ways to approach this, because the things that are going to keep them from believing the big domino are their belief in the vehicle you're putting them into or the new opportunity. It's their belief about themselves being able to execute on it. It's their belief about the external things they fear are going to stop them from having success. But it's all just one thing, this one domino. Okay, I'm convincing you that funnels are the greatest thing in the world. This is what you have to have. And then you're like, okay, well, convince me more of this thing. I need more pushing on this. I need pushing that I can actually do it. And I need pushing that all these other things. So I'm coming through, I'm trying to knock down these external things. Does that make sense? So those are the other stories. So my first story I'm telling you is the origin story. It's my first shot at trying to knock down the big domino. Like I said, a percentage of people, that's all they need and they're in. Then there's the next percentage of people who are like, they have questions or fears about this. My second story here is all about the vehicle/opportunity. Okay, so what's your epiphany bridge story that you have that got you to believe in this and this, right? What's that epiphany bridge story that you had? Story number 3 then is the internal fears they have. So your third story is your epiphany bridge about the internal. And number 4, epiphany bridge about the external things holding back. Okay, so those are the 4 core epiphany bridge stories you need to have. And the reason why is, again, it's all about knocking down this domino. Origin story is the first shot. Second shot is taking out the vehicle, taking out this and this. It's like the stilts that are holding this domino up. And you're just like, okay, I'm gonna try to push down the domino. Sometimes it knocks over, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, knock out that stilt, knock out that one, knock out that one. And it's like, awesome, I believe. Boom. And you got them. And then that domino knocks down all the other ones, and they have to give you money. They have to come to you. Does that make sense, you guys? So that is the key. These are the 4 stories. Okay? Now where do we get these stories from? So what I'm talking about now is an exercise that I highly, 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 highly recommend you guys all do tonight, tomorrow, whenever you want to do it. So on page 132 in the book, we talk about this. So it's this thing right here, okay? So the false belief patterns. So the reason why people aren't giving you money, the reason why they're not doing what they do is because they have false beliefs, right? That's what we're talking about. Like, how do we create belief? How do we cause belief? How do we take false beliefs and break them and rebuild them into true beliefs? So I got to think about this. So for me, we did this for number 1, but for most of you guys, like, if you do this, you have one story, you have your origin story, but you need more stories, you need a lot of stories. So the way I do this, I come down, I said, for somebody to give me money and to become part of this thing I'm trying to sell or create or do, what are all of their false beliefs that they have related to this? Like, what are there? And there's false beliefs about this. These two are similar. So the false beliefs about the vehicle, about their internal and their external. So what I do is I come down here and I start making a list. I start building a story inventory. So I'm down here, I'm like, okay, false beliefs. What are the false beliefs they have? Okay, so they have a false belief about blah. Maybe they have a false belief back here that like, I'm going to use MLM because that's what we're using to begin with, so we'll just kind of stay on that theme. But again, this works for anything. So let's say it's network marketing. They're like, okay, well, only people at the top of the pyramid make money, right? So that's a false belief they have. And then number 3 is like, oh, I'm going to have to do home parties or whatever, right? Or things are like, I'm gonna have to learn how to sell. I hate selling, it scares me. Everyone who's ever signed up's already signed up, so everyone's signed up. So I list out all the different false beliefs that I can think that people are gonna have about this. Okay, and all the false beliefs are different like things they're using to try to like keep security in what they have by holding up this domino. Like, here's all the false beliefs that they've accomplished throughout their entire life. So I list out as many as I can. A minimum of 10. You should do 20, 30, 40. Like, if this is a business you want to be in for forever, you should do a lot of these, okay? A lot of people ask me, Russell, how do you tell so many stories every single time you talk? Okay, it's because I did this exercise. I have an inventory of stories. I've written them out. I know what they are. So I'm talking now, like, I sit here and like plan out, and I'm gonna tell story number 1 here, story 2 here. Like, I have the framework, and as I'm going, because I've written these out and I know my stories. When I'm talking, also I'm like, oh, tell the story. Oh, tell this story. Oh, tell this, and I can pull them out of thin air because I know them. Most of you guys can't tell stories well because you never thought about it. You never mapped them out. You need to build an inventory of stories. So the way you do that, you start with false beliefs. Here's all the false beliefs your customers could have. Now, if you're struggling with this, what I want you to do is I want you to stop. I want you to come back over here, and before you had your epiphany, what were your false beliefs you had about this thing? Because they're probably the same as theirs. Okay, when I was sharing this one time in our inner circle meeting, Garrett White was there, and Garrett's like, I always struggled with this until I realized that it were all the false beliefs I had. When I broke through those is when I had success and I got the result. So he just went back then and said, what were all the false beliefs I had? So for you, it's like, what are the false beliefs you had? Or the beliefs that they have, or whatever that might be, whatever you can think of it, here's all the false beliefs, okay? Then I want to come back and say, okay, why do they believe this? Why do they believe that only the people at the top of the pyramid scheme are making money? Why do they only believe that the only way to lose weight is if you have the right metabolism? Whatever it is for you. So what's the experience they had? There's some experience they had tied to this thing that made them believe that. And now because of that, they made up their own story. What is the story that they tell themselves? And I need to identify what their story is because I have to have an epiphany bridge story here that trumps theirs, that's better. Okay? So what is my story right here? And this is the key. What is your story here? Okay, then come back to number 2. Here's the false belief they had. Why do they believe that? Here's the experience they probably had. We don't know the exact one, but they're pretty similar. Humans aren't as different as we all think. The experiences are similar. Here's the story they're probably telling themselves. Here's my story that trumps their story. Okay, number 3. Here's the false belief, story, or experience, story, my story. False belief, their experience, their story, my story. And you keep going through here until you have all these stories, right? Now you got your list of Epiphany Bridge stories. You have a whole bunch of them here now, right? Now I have this is my story inventory. Now practice telling that story. Okay, go in front of a mirror, pull out this script right here, tell the story once. Pull out the script here, tell the next one. Tell the next one, tell the next one, tell the next one, tell the next one, tell the next one. Okay, do it in front of a mirror, do it on a podcast, do it on a Facebook Live, do it on whatever it is. Remember we talked yesterday about becoming the expert? Doing Facebook Lives every single day. Guess what I do on my Facebook Lives every single day? Whoa, I just tell stories. These are the stories I'm telling over and over. Start watching what I'm doing, you guys. Every time I come on my podcast, guess what it is? Me telling a story. Every podcast you listen to, I'm like, okay, so let me tell you what I did today. And I go into the backstory. I start telling this whole story, right? Every podcast, every Facebook Live, every webinar, every communication, this whole entire training has been a bunch of these. You guys not notice that? How many stories have I told? Anyone keeping track? I don't know. Last time Dave kept track, I did a 60-minute presentation in a group, and he started marking down all the stories. And it ended up it was over 1 per minute, wasn't it? It was like 120, anyway, 1 or 2 per minute when you looked at the whole thing. Some are long, some are short, some are stories embedded inside stories, but they're happening because I've done them. I know what they are. I know how to tell these stories. I know where I'm going. Some people start telling stories and they're going and they're like wandering here, and then they're kind of like, where am I going with this? And they just wander off and you don't get the impact that you need. So you do this by learning them, by mastering them, by practicing them. So you write out all these kind of stories, right? So you figure out, here's all the stories, it breaks all these false beliefs. You practice, you tell these stories. And then when you come back over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these, and I'm not going to tell all these stories in as much depth, but I'm going to look back at here. I'm going to say, okay, here we have our origin story, which is my first one. So I'm going to say origin story. That's our initial goal at knocking down this big thing. Then I'm here, I'm like, okay, what do you think? What's the biggest false belief that they're going to have about this after I tell them my origin story? So the biggest false belief they're going to have. So and I'm going to use the funnel scripts webinar, because I know a lot of you guys have, not funnel scripts, excuse me, the ClickFunnels webinar, because I know a lot of you guys have seen that. So for this, I tell my origin story about my potato guns, right? Then I come down here, I'm like, okay, secret number 1, I'm going to show you guys how to ethically steal over $1 million worth of funnel hacks from your competitors for under $100. Okay, what's the false belief that I am trying to get them to do here? Okay, when I looked at that, I said, okay, their false belief about the vehicle, so I'm trying to get them into funnels, is that, man, Russell made sense. I believe in funnels now, but it seems so techie and complex. I don't know, it just seems like too much. So what I do, my false belief is that funnels, understanding how to create a funnel is really, really hard. So that was the false belief here, right? So then what was the reason why? Well, the experience they had is they tried to build a funnel or a website or a blog or something in the past. They'd hire tech guys and Indians and they couldn't communicate with them. They put them things in the wrong spot. So because of that, they're like, building this crap is hard. I don't know the strategy or anything. And so I said, okay, what's my story? So when I was building out that webinar, I'm like, okay, what are the stories that I have that are going to trump their story? Okay, so if you look at that, I tell a couple Epiphany Bridge stories in secret number 1. First thing I do is I tell the Epiphany Bridge story about, it's a quick one about Tony Robbins talking about how you need a model of success. Then I switch to Porter Stansberry talking about how you got to copy somebody, and I talk about my epiphany I had there. Then I go back through and I show the actual, and that's why I teach the whole thing. And so I tell 2 or 3 little Epiphany Bridge stories that are the things that knock that out and make it irrelevant. Boom, and now all of a sudden this domino starts tipping. Then I transition to secret number 2, the internal. So then they're like, cool, Russell, you convinced me. Your origin story convinced me funnels are awesome. I convinced I could actually map out a funnel now because I get it. I see exactly how I do that. I just funnel hack someone else. Sweet, that's awesome. But I'm not technical. I've got no skills, Russell. Cool, so that's your internal fear. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do it. Cool, let's talk about this. Your internal fear. So in secret number 2, talk about how I'm going to show you how to clone your proven funnel in less than 10 minutes. So for me, I just do a demo on ClickFunnels. I'm like, look, even an idiot like Russell can do it. And I move the thing around. It's so easy. Even I can do it. And they're like, holy crap, Russell can do it. I can do that too. That looks like fun, actually. Okay, sweet. So I believe the funnels are the greatest things since sliced bread. I can actually build a funnel now. This is so cool. I'm going to build a funnel. I'm going to sell all my crap. And they're thinking about all the stuff, all the possibilities. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait. I build a funnel. Then what happens? I don't know how to get traffic or people or all these other fears, right? So I'm okay. the last thing, that if I show you to get traffic, then would you do this? Like, oh yeah, if you can show me traffic, I'm in. Okay, cool. Let me share you my Epiphany Bridge story on that. So traffic used to be really hard. I tried Facebook, tried Google, tried blah, blah, blah. And I figured out this way. I found my competitor's site, run through similar web. It shows me in a way. If you've seen the webinar, you know what I'm talking about. Boom, I show this whole thing. Traffic comes easy. This one knocks down. Boom, wait, so what happens? Now all these pillars are gone. The big domino has to fall. Boom. And people have to give me money. Okay, but all it is I'm figuring out origin story, the original Epiphany Bridge that got me excited about this, the big domino. Then I figure out what are their other fears about this vehicle, because it's a commitment. They're leaving security and a known thing for something that's unknown. So what are their fears about that? And then what are the Epiphany Bridge stories I have that'll trump this? That's going to replace that for them. And then what's the internal fears going to have? What's the Epiphany Bridge story have to replace that? External Epiphany Bridge stories replace that. That's it, you guys. That's the magic. Okay? Those are the 4 stories. Origin story, vehicle, internal, external. So if you've watched any of the webinars that I've done, any webinars that our Inner Circle members have done, you will see this pattern over and over and over again. It's not that we have to go, and in the book I talk about, like, if you're doing this from a PowerPoint standpoint, in fact, I go through like a third of this book is like, hey, slide number 1 is this. Slide number 2 is where you plug in origin story. Slide number 3 is where you plug in your big domino statement. And so like, I show that in here. So you can go through like, yeah, slide number 7, liking the story to them. Slide number 6, Epiphany Bridge story, origin story number 1. So I go through like, if I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation, but the reality is like, you don't have to do PowerPoints to be able to do this. If you understand the structure, it becomes really, really easy. Anytime I'm trying to sell somebody something, this is all I'm doing. Let me tell them a story about this. Story, asking for money. That's it, right? You can do this in so many ways. So the one way that we're most familiar with is a webinar, right? That's why I talk about in the book, like I wish, whenever we started this whole movement 3 or 4 years ago, I started calling it the perfect webinar because I didn't want people to jack it up. And it's funny because every time someone in our circle, they'll do a webinar, like, it didn't work. And I'm like, it didn't work? Like, what happened? Like, well, I tweaked some things on it because of blah, blah. I'm like, okay, so wait, you're telling me that I gave you something that's called the perfect webinar and you took it and you changed it and now it's not working? Yes. I'm like, okay, what if you did the perfect webinar the way it's built because it's perfect? I didn't make this crap up. For those who don't know, my Epiphany Bridge story is when I hear it, I'll do the fast version, okay? When I got started 14 years ago, I was an internet nerd. I was sitting behind my computer with glasses. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm making money selling crap. And I thought it was so cool. I went to my very first internet marketing seminar, thinking it'd be a bunch of geeks like me sitting in a room with our computers, like, I don't know, texting each other so we don't have to actually talk because we were all introverted, scared of each other. I get this event, I'm in this room, and I see the first speaker get on stage, and I think that he's just gonna sit there and he's gonna be teaching me internet marketing. And he does this presentation for 90 minutes. At the end of it, he sells something, and for $2,000, and people start running to the back of the room. And I'm sitting there like, what's happening? You know, adjust my little nerdy glasses, and I'm looking back, and I'm seeing people running to the back, and I start doing the math. It's a $2,000 course, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Holy crap, that guy made $60,000. Next speaker gets up, does the same thing, speaks. He's selling a $5,000 package. People start running, do the math, 5, 10, 50, 20, $120,000. Person, for 3 days I see this over and over and over again. I'm sitting there like, I've got to learn how to do that because that is freaking amazing. I don't care how nerdy and introverted I am. If I can get $100,000 an hour, that's a skill I should probably like focus everything I know on and figure out, right? Like it's worth it. And so I was like, okay, cool. So as soon as I like put that out there, like I'm gonna learn this stuff, then right like a month or 2 later, I get an invite from my friends saying, hey, come to this seminar and speak. Like, you're doing internet marketing, you wanna teach it? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you can sell something too at the end if you want. I'm like, all right. And so I'm like, I am so smart. I'm gonna come up there. And cause I was like at that event, I'm like, those people just told stories all day and they didn't even teach that much. I'm gonna like blow these people's minds and they're all gonna give me their money. So I stood on stage in my presentation and I gave like the most amazing presentation. I taught step by step exactly what to do and how to do it. And I weaved this whole thing. And it was amazing. At the end of it, I did my pitch. And I remember being in the process and I was like, I'm not gonna insult your intelligence like the other speakers. My package costs $1,000 and you can get order forms in the back. And I stood there all cocky and statured and postured and nothing happened. And I looked down in the audience and I was like, this is really awkward. I slowly kind of turned and walked off the stage. I came out and people started greeting me. That presentation was amazing. I learned so much. That was the best presentation of the whole event. Thank you. Next person, that was so amazing. I learned so much. Thank you. Person after person. I walked to the elevator, jumped to the ring. I literally went to my hotel room, locked the doors because I didn't want to see the other speakers. They were going to make fun of me that nobody moved. I didn't want to see the other attendees. I didn't see anyone. So I hid in my room for the next 3 days during the event. And I remember all I did all day is I ordered Haagen-Dazs ice cream and coconut shrimp. It was a great 3 days. like every hour on the hour, probably gained 8,000 pounds and watched movies all day because I was too embarrassed to go out. And I was like, I'm sitting there in all this pain. I was like, I will never, ever try to sell from stage again. That was horrible. That was the worst experience ever. And then went home, snuck out that night, went home, I flew home, and then a little while later, someone else asked me, I went to a couple other events, I saw people doing it, and I was like, what are they doing I'm not doing? And then had a mentor who kind of told me, he said, look, he said, I saw your presentation, the problem is like you're selling. I'm like, that's what people want, or he said, the problem is you're teaching. I'm like, that's what I need to be doing, I need to be teaching. He's like, do you understand how much of a disservice you're doing to people? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, if you're teaching for 60, do you honestly think that people are gonna learn what you know in 60 minutes, 90 minutes? Like, there's no possible way. Like, that is physically impossible unless your crap sucks. If they can learn what they need in 60 minutes, like, you're not very good at what you do. Like, that's something they can just go Google and figure out the answer to. He's like, if you honestly care about your people, you have to get them, first off, to believe what you're saying, so much so that they're actually gonna do it. Your job as a speaker is not just to teach them crap, your job is to change them. I was like, what? How do you do that? He's like, you don't do it by teaching. You gotta figure out what their beliefs are, and you have to shatter those things and rebuild the right beliefs. And I know what that meant. And it took me almost 10 years to figure that out. A little while later, I went back to the speaking circuit, and I would go and I started, and we talk about funnel hacking all the time in our audience, but I started watching the speakers, and I was like, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? And I'd take notes, and I would try stuff, and then I would get invited to speak, and I'd go and I'd try a thing, and it would do a little better. I'm like, okay, cool, that worked. And I would try again and again. And for 3 years, I was on the road. It was really hard in my marriage, and in fact, it was really bad. But probably once or twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month or more, I was on the road speaking. And I was learning this process. I'd go and I'd figure it out. I'd watch other speakers, I'd take notes, and then I'd tweak my presentation, I'd give it, and I'd like incremental successes. And I'd watch the next event, watch all the speakers, take notes, change my slides, do my presentation. And 3 years of that, it got better and better and better. And after 3 years, like I said, it was really hard on my marriage. And one day I was sitting at the airport in Boise, Idaho, sitting at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Nobody else is there, waiting for a flight. And I text my wife, like, I'm gonna quit this. And she's like, you're not gonna quit, you're making too much money. I was like, this sucks. And so I quit. So I did that last speaking gig, and then I quit. Came home, and I was like, dang, we were making really good money doing this. What should I do now? I said, well, how do we take what we learned and how do we shift it to sell other stuff online? Can we do that? Like, does it work? And back then it was pre-webinar, I started doing teleseminars, and I tried this stuff in teleseminars, and I was like, holy crap, it's the same thing. We shift it to webinars, and over again. And it's 10 to 12 years of me doing this over and over, tweaking, changing, learning from the best people in the world, the point where it is now. And now I've done it, I've shared with other people, I'm in circles, all doing like, it works. You have to understand, like, a lot of us think that getting on a webinar, I'm gonna teach people stuff. And just like I learned from my mentor back then, like, if I'm just gonna go and teach people stuff, like, it doesn't, like, it's a huge disservice. I mean, how many of your customers have you given them everything? You put everything you know in a book, you give it to them, they get the book, and they put it down, and it gets dust, and they don't do anything. They got excited by the moment, they don't have the impact or the change that they need to have to be successful. How many of you guys have that? It's frustrating, right? You're like, dude, I gave you everything, it's there, it's sitting there. You just have to do something. And the reason why they don't is because they still have all these false beliefs. You have not done your job, you failed them. Okay, people always get mad at me. Oh, Russell, your presentations I don't teach. I'm like, dude, I teach better. What I'm teaching is the most important thing. I'm teaching them that they want to have this result, that they've got to destroy these false beliefs that are keeping them back. And after I destroy those things, I give them no other outs for them to wimp out and not do the thing. Then they're like, crap, like, this is the move, this is the future, this is the opportunity I want. I know I can do it, and I know nothing's gonna stop me. And if I can get them to believe that, then I can sell them something that'll be the vehicle that gets them the result. Okay? You have to understand, like, you guys, when you shift your mindset to that, like, it's funny, when we first started teaching the inner circle, people, like, it's tough sometimes for you as the educator. We're so good at educating and teaching, right? And so the problem is we get out there and we're like, I didn't teach people that much stuff. Like, I went out there and, like, I told stories and I did stuff. I didn't teach them that much stuff, and they felt weird. And I remember Noah, one of the guys in our circle, he told me, he's like, the first time I did it, he's like, I felt really, he's like, I used to do presentations. People always told me, I learned so much, thank you so much. But they didn't do anything. He's like, I started doing it your way, and at first I felt like I was jipping them out, because like, I didn't give them the tools yet. Like, I haven't given them like the how-to that they actually need to be successful. He's like, you know what's weird? He's like, I get more people now that tell me that presentation changed their life than ever before. Because what you don't understand as an educator, you think that the key is like the how-tos. How-tos are easy. That's what you sell in your course. That's what people are going to have. The key is this. When you break people's belief patterns, they don't just like, oh, I learned a cool thing. For them, it's a paradigm shift. It radically transforms their way of thinking, their way of living, And that is the most important and most powerful content they will ever have. And you forget it sometimes because you've already gone through those experiences. You've already had those transformations. And so you gloss over all that crap and move on to the technobabble teaching. This is not what people want. You give them this, you give them that epiphany, they will remember that. They will change. That is the best, highest way you can serve your audience. Do you guys understand that? Like, I don't know how many more ways I can push that, but I believe that so strongly. That's why this is so important. So this is not something I made up. It's not something I just invented overnight. It's 12 years, 3 years of me on stage looking like an idiot half the time, learning how to do it, then perfecting the next 8 years through teleseminars, webinars, over and over and over again for myself. We got 100 people in the inner circle doing it every single week. We're going to talk about the model here in a little bit, but it's a consistent thing. Like, this has been tried and true and tested. It is the key. It is the pattern. Do not deviate from it. It is the perfect webinar. It's perfect. Don't jack it up. Just follow it. It works, okay? And if you are screwing up, then guess what? Like, I have people like, oh, perfect webinar didn't work for me all the time. And I always look at it, it's always because they mess this stuff up. They shift from breaking beliefs to teaching and training and trying to give them all this technobabble crap. They're not ready for this yet. After you break their beliefs, they will be ready for your technobabble. They will go on this journey. They will buy your product and they will geek out and have fun on the techno stuff. But if you do not destroy their beliefs first, they will never get to this and you will have failed your customer. That's the key. Okay, now this process, again, this works in PowerPoint slide presentation style. That's what we started doing it initially. Well, honestly, it started with me on stage. In fact, it works on stage. I spoke at Grant Cardone's event 2 months ago. For those of you guys who were at Grant Cardone's event, they had 2,200 people in this huge room and did the presentation, closed it, and we had masses of people running. Did almost $1 million in sales in 90 minutes. People were sprinting to the side, trying to buy, going crazy. And Grant even pulled me aside afterwards. He's like, I've never seen someone do that before. I don't know how you did that. That was amazing. This year we're speaking at this event. I think there's like 8,000 or 9,000 people going to be at it. And it's going to be big. We're going to move the audience because of this. Because it's not about me being smarter or teaching them technobabble craps at me, breaking their beliefs, showing them the vision of the future, and bringing them with us. Okay? It works. So it works on stage, works through webinars, works on teleseminars. Recently, actually this last week, some of you guys may have seen it, we did over 6 figures with this. It works on Facebook Lives. We did a Facebook Live. In fact, here it is. We printed these out so you saw this. I just took this. I took this right here. This is my one thing. We talked about this. I told my origin story. And then I went through and I just showed these different pictures. I have 5 or 6 slides here that went through the whole thing. Anyway, I wonder if I can see it. I'm trying to find one of them. I'll show you real quick here. But this right here, so this is my one thing, which is my big domino. So if you go through, when you go through the book, this is the one thing, these are the 3 secrets that we go through. But like, let me find the one I'm looking for. All right. So I came through here. First off, I told my origin story. So I showed like, here's a website. Here's a sales funnel. I told them potato gun story. Then I had vehicle, right? So after I told my origin story about potato gun story, then I came here, what's my vehicle? Which was secret number 1, funnel hacking. So I took this false belief that figuring out the structure of a funnel was hard and complicated, and I made it easy, and then I tied a cool headline to this thing, right? So how to ethically sell over $1 million with funnel hacking from your competitors for under $100. Everything I tell after this slide is all stories to knock this down, boom. When that's done, then I shift to the internal beliefs. This is gonna be hard. Funnels are cool. I don't know if I can do it. Cool, let me show you this. Funnel cloning, how to clone the proven funnel in less than 10 minutes. Then I show them how easy that is. Tell them some stories, do a demo. Number 3, cool, but extra, I don't know if I can do, I don't know how to get traffic. Oh, well, guess what? Secret number 3, I'm gonna show you my number 1 traffic hack. How to get the exact same customers who are currently going to your competitors' funnels, start coming to your funnels instead. We do that, boom, 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 boom. 4 stories are told, domino knocks down, there's belief, we get customers. So we do it on Facebook Live, just simple like that. Okay, the one I'm gonna do here in like 20 minutes is the same thing I'm gonna do Facebook Live. You're gonna see the whole process and the whole thing. Same kind of thing, right? You do it with Facebook Live. It works through email sequences. Okay, we do this now where email number 1 tells the origin story. Email number 2, email 3, email 4, email 5, you ask them for money. Works in email sequences. Product launch styles. How many of you guys seen Jeff Walker's product launch formula? It's very, very similar. We have a couple different tweaks that we do versus him, but the process is almost identical. Stu McLaren and I, when we were in Kenya last summer, I was walking through my webinar process, and he was like, let me walk you through my product launch process that I do. And he walked me through his, and I was like, weird. Video 1 and product launch sequence. Video 2, video 3, video 4. Like, it's weird how much they mirror. So it doesn't matter the format. There's so many ways to do this, but it's understanding this is sales. This is how you sell. Now I titled this presentation and also the section of the book, Your Moral Obligation. And I'm going to end with this as well. So Jay Abraham told me this. He said, he said that if you honestly believe in the product and the service that you're selling, then you have a moral obligation to do everything within your power to get it into the hands of your customers. And when I first heard that, I was like, moral obligation, like, do I believe when I have that much? And for a long time I didn't, which is why I think I struggled at selling stuff. I didn't believe in that much. But some people ask, like, how has ClickFunnels grown so fast, so much? Okay, and for me, if you want to know, it's because I believe in my soul, in my heart, that I have a moral obligation to get this out to everyone. It's spiritual for me, it's spiritual for people in our office. Like, we feel that, like, I know that when people have this tool, it'll change their life. It's completely, radically transformed my life. I've watched in the last 12 months, we've had, more than that now, but the first 12 months, we had 93 people make over $1 million in a funnel. 93 people whose lives have been changed, which is cool. But number two, which is even cooler, is those 93 people made $1 million. That represents thousands of people that they're each serving. Hundreds of thousands of people being affected because of what we're doing here inside of ClickFunnels. Like, I believe in it so much, that's why I go crazy. Like, I could easily go home right now and take a nap. But I didn't. I'm here serving you guys because I know that if I can get one of you to hear something I say, tweak how you do it, and get your people to change their life, then I've helped you. I'm like, obviously I know that it's you, but I've been a little piece in that journey. And for me, that's so fulfilling. Because I know that this world is not going to get changed by politicians or political parties or anything. It's going to get changed by you, by entrepreneurs, people who actually believe in what they have and are willing to get off their butts and figure out any way possible to get their customers to buy their product so they can give them the result that they actually want and they need. That's how passionate I am about this, and that's why I feel this way. So for you guys, the same thing. Like, you have a moral obligation to get your tools into people's hands. This is the process. And doesn't this feel better? Does this feel better than, like, okay, let me show you my 36 closing techniques. Let me show you my tricks and it's not what this is about. This is about what are their false beliefs that are keeping them from the big domino. And we figure that out. We tell 4 stories, knocks down that money, and then we ask them for money at the end. And we talked about in the book, we should walk you through all the rest of the stuff, and we'll go deeper into that. But that is the key. Okay. All right, so with that said, you guys, this is the framework. I hope this was really fun. I've never gone into this much detail in one spot like this. So I hope you guys enjoyed that a lot. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a 20-minute break. When we come back, I'm gonna be doing a webinar, pitching a coaching program that we have that I think all of you guys should be part of, only if you like money. If you don't like money, don't worry about it. But if you do, I think you should be part of it. So I'm gonna talk about that, but I'm actually gonna do the webinar. So you are gonna see me do this whole process. You're gonna see me telling my origin story. You're gonna see me telling these other stories. You're gonna see me hitting down the big domino, going external, vehicle, internal, external. You're gonna see epiphany bridge stories. You're gonna see kind of like bridges. You're gonna see all these pieces wrapped into one presentation. And I want you to watch it intently. Get a pad of paper, notepad, things like that. Watch what I'm doing and link those to the things you're seeing that we talked about here. Link those kind of things, and you'll see it. In the end of it, I want to invite you guys to come join the actual coaching program so you can go deep into the technobabble side of it. We'll talk about that later. So watch the presentation and understand it. See if you can see all those kind of things. And then when we're done after that, so I'm going to come on and I'm not going to do a short intro. We're going to start in about 20 minutes. And when we start, I'm going to start writing the presentation. We're going to go. When it ends, we'll actually end, and then we'll be done for today. And then tomorrow morning, at 9 a.m. I'm gonna come back, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold this up. We have this page right here. I'm gonna have the presentations here, and I'm gonna show you guys what I did and why I did and all the different intricacies, and it's gonna be really fun and exciting, and hopefully be a really good teaching lesson for you guys and just show you how powerful this stuff is. So that's kind of game plan. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a 20-minute break. That'll give me enough time to take a nap, get a drink, and get things set up for the perfect webinar in action. And I'm excited to show this to you guys. So take a 20-minute break, go to the bathroom, get drinks, get your notepads out, and we'll be back here in 20 minutes. Thanks, everybody.